Christmas night on BBC1 brings out a bit of the unexpected from Dorian.
I know. You're lost for words. May I suggest you shouldn't have Dorian. They're beautiful. We're not worth it.
Then at 9, guess who?
I'm Sally Cumbernauld. This is Martin Crosswaite.
How are you?
Chipping in already? No, I love him.
At 9:50, Shirley Valentine.
You're 42, not 22. You're just another stupid woman looking for adventure. And the time for adventures is over.
But Shirley's adventures are about to begin.
I am Kostas Dimitriadis.
I'm Shirley. Hello.
Hello.
Keep the hankies handy this Christmas night on 1.
My name is Julius, and I'm your twin brother.
Oh, obviously. The moment I sat down, I thought I was looking into a mirror.
Julius Benedict is honest, upright, and law-abiding. But Vincent, on the other hand...
Never sleep with that man, never loan him money, and never believe a word he tells you.
Still, they do have one thing in common.
She's our mother, is the thing.
We are her sons.
Twin sons.
Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito star in the movie premiere Twins, Monday at 7 o'clock on BBC1.
The festive fun's too much for Bruce in 10 minutes.
Comic genius Jacques Tati stars on BBC Two now as the blundering Monsieur Hulot, bringing havoc to a quiet seaside town. You're watching BBC One. Now, the early evening news with Chris Lowe. It's 5:10.
Good afternoon. The Queen has spoken in her Christmas message of the difficult days she and her family have lived through this year. She said there was no magic formula to transform sorrow into happiness, but she was deeply touched by all the sympathy and understanding she had received during what she called this sombre year.
It was a depleted family group at church at Sandringham this morning. For the first time, Prince William and Prince Harry were without their mother on Christmas Day. She was more than 50 miles away at her brother's home in Northamptonshire. Her absence and that of the Duchess of York were the clearest signals of the divisions that have made this the most traumatic year of the Queen's long reign. A reminder of a recent happy royal occasion was the presence of the Princess Royal and her husband of less than 2 weeks, Commander Timothy Lawrence. The Queen's Christmas broadcast was recorded at Sandringham House for the first time in 40 years. It was itself controversial when it was leaked to the Sun newspaper, and in it she does acknowledge her family problems.
Like many other families, we have lived through some difficult days this year. The prayers, understanding and sympathy given to us by so many of you, in good times and bad, have lent us great support and encouragement. It has touched me deeply that much of this has come from those of you who have troubles of your own. As some of you may have heard me observe, it has indeed been a sombre year.
The Queen paid tribute to service personnel trying to keep peace abroad and to aid workers endeavouring to bring food to the weak and innocent. Christmas, she said, was a good time to focus on the problems of others.
1993 will certainly bring new challenges. But let us resolve to meet it with fresh hope in our hearts. There is no magic formula that will transform sorrow into happiness, intolerance into compassion, or war into peace.
The Queen recalled Christmases at Sandringham as a grandchild and said the continuity represented by her own grandchildren's presence there had been a great source of comfort in a world of change, tension and violence.
The Archbishop of Canterbury, Dr. George Carey, warned about the dangers of materialism in his Christmas Day sermon at Canterbury Cathedral. He said Britain risked degenerating into what he called a meanness of spirit. He also referred to rifts over the ordination of women, promising that the church would remain a home open to all. The Israeli government has rejected an appeal from the International Red Cross to allow it to take relief supplies to more than 400 Palestinians deported to the Lebanon last week. The Palestinians are camped just outside the Israeli-controlled security zone in southern Lebanon.
The Palestinians trapped in South Lebanon are enduring ever-worsening conditions. Their food is running out, they have no fresh water, and perched in the bleakest of terrain, they are very cold. Israel was going to make no decision about letting aid through until the regular cabinet meeting on Sunday. But some ministers, unhappy with that delay, forced a special cabinet session this afternoon. It was a close vote, but Israel's unyielding Prime Minister, Mr. Rabin, won the day.
The government of Israel do not see any good reason to respond positively to the request of the International Red Cross Committee to bring this convoy through the security zone.
The Cabinet's main concern was to avoid being involved in the fate of the deportees. But left-wing ministers called the decision a mistake. One said, "We could have demonstrated our magnanimity." On the streets of the occupied territories, there have been more clashes today. Israelis and Palestinians as far away as ever from understanding, tolerance or peace. Justin Webb, BBC News, Jerusalem.
A man has been charged with the murder of a 99-year-old woman who died after being attacked in an old people's home. Sarah Burke was found seriously injured at the home in Redruth, Cornwall, last Sunday. She'd been kicked and punched unconscious and died later of shock. The man, who is 21, will appear before magistrates tomorrow. A 21-year-old woman was killed and 9 other people injured when a car ploughed into a group of people leaving a Christmas party at Keynsham Rugby Club near Bristol. 3 of the injured are in a critical condition. The police say the driver failed a breath test. The former secretary of the Football Association, Ted Croker, has died at the age of 68. He held the post for 16 years, taking over in 1973 at a time of rising hooliganism and falling attendances, and was credited with developing sponsorship. In his Christmas message, Pope John Paul has condemned what he called the planned and inhuman violence taking place in Bosnia. There, the population and the UN forces have been trying to celebrate Christmas despite the constant threat posed by the war.
18 British lorry drivers carrying supplies for Sarajevo. Gary Madison, like many of the others, comes from Suffolk. It's definitely not a safe way to spend Christmas. His cab has two-way radio, but it isn't armoured, and there are some very hostile people around.
We can't take the normal route along the top road due to the problem of the snipers at the far end.
Yet even on this route, a sniper hit the UN escort vehicle, though no one was hurt. Gary Madison was bringing in a load of flour for the only bakery in Sarajevo to be in operation still.
It's a job with a sense of achievement, if you like. Feel like you do some good for once in your life. I think it's a bit of good job satisfaction, yes.
This convoy has brought in 150 tons of flour. To provide everyone in Sarajevo with bread for a day requires 100 tons. In other words, these drivers have risked their lives to supply the city with enough bread to last until tomorrow afternoon. But in fact, the bakery was so seriously short of diesel oil that at midday it ran out of fuel altogether. The last loaf in the last working bakery in the city came down the production line. Outside, people were waiting in the hope of buying bread. When they heard the bakery had shut down, it was a bitter disappointment. Things were a lot less bleak outside the city, though. There, the British soldiers with the UN put on a band show for the locals. And they handed out presents at an orphanage. Here, even in the middle of a particularly nasty civil war, there was a moment of happiness.
That's it. Have a nice evening. The main news tonight is at 10 to 9.
Hello. Well, a few flurries of snow in Bosnia today for Christmas Day, but a basically dry story across our country. There has been some rain moving down towards the Glasgow area, but it's been thinning out and dying away all the time. So just a little bit of drizzly weather moving down into southern Scotland and Northern Ireland overnight. Clear skies following to the north in Scotland, and as a result some mist and fog. But this is where we're going to find the really dangerous stuff, the thick, dense, freezing fog, mostly over northern England, perhaps just into North Wales too. Atrocious conditions again on the roads there. Further south over the rest of England and Wales, a cloudy story, misty and murky with some fog on the hills. The worst of the frosty weather, the hard frost in that fog, but there could be some icy stretches on roads right down to the Midlands too for a time. Tomorrow the high pressure will squeeze the last of the drizzle out of that weather front there, so the drizzle dying away and the cloud showing signs of breaking. Early mist clearing and some sunshine in Scotland, but another cold day, rather misty and cloudy, though the worst of the fog should slowly thin tomorrow. Bye for now.
This Sunday, take a seat for laughs and gaffs galore when Terry Wogan presents a new compilation of Auntie's Bloomers.
And they called it puppy love. I don't wanna lose you. 'Cause if you get it wrong, you'll get it right next time. It takes two, baby. Just me and you.
Catch up with more Auntie's Bloomers this Sunday at 7:15 on BBC1.
Are you going to be all right?
Oh, yeah, fine. Pauline won't even notice I've gone.
What happened to Dad last night when he disappeared?
Arthur, where have you been?
Lies and Recriminations, EastEnders, in just over an hour.
Well, before that, Bruce Forsyth's Christmas Generation Game.